All right, we are beginning the pre-algebra course, seventh grade accelerated math with indicator one. And indicator one is all about integers, adding, subtracting, multiplying, dividing integers, and operations with integers. That is what indicator one is about. So let's begin with the first one, which is adding integers. And the learning target for this integer is I can use different methods, including algebra tiles, number lines, or absolute value to add integers. Okay, so first, of course, we need to know what these terms mean. An absolute value is nothing but the distance of a number from zero on the number line. So if I say, what's the absolute value of 5? The distance of 5 from zero on the number line is 5. What's the absolute value of negative 5? So if I look at the distance of negative 5 from zero on the number line, that distance is also going to be 5. Okay, so two integers can have exactly the same absolute value. Any integer and its opposite, like just I just said, 5 and negative 5 are both the same distance from zero on the number line. Okay, so that's what absolute value is. Additive inverse, we are going to talk about that also. So additive inverse, that is the sum of a number, basically, and its additive inverse, which is its opposite. All right, gives you zero. So additive inverse, basically you're taking the opposite of a number. Just like I said, opposite of 5 is negative 5, and I know that the sum of them, 5 plus negative 5, is going to give me 0. Okay, so that's what additive inverse means. All right, so let's get started with this lesson that you've understood the vocabulary. Now we are going to add signs, add integers with the same sign and with different signs. Okay, so let's start with the first one. Let's start talking about with the same sign. All right, so I've just put two problems over here. I have 2 plus 5, and I have negative 2 plus negative 5. As I can see that these both have the same sign. So I'm going to show you the learning target methods, the algebra tiles, number lines, or absolute value in order to add these integers. Okay, so if I'm adding integers with the same sign, I basically add the absolute values of the integers and then use the common sign. Okay, so I'm adding the absolute values of the integers and then using the common sign. So let's start with the absolute value method. Okay, so um, let's start with this one. And I know that if I'm using the absolute value method, my absolute value of 2 plus my absolute value of 5. So that gives me absolute value of 2 is 2, absolute value of 5 is 5. That gives me 7. And the common sign here is positive, so it stays as a positive number. Okay, let's look at the negative ones. All right, so if I take this one here, all right, if I take that one there and I say absolute value of negative 2 plus absolute value of negative 5. All right, so absolute value, the distance of negative 2 from 0 on the number line is 2. So this is going to be 2 plus absolute value of negative 5 is 5. 2 plus 5 is 7. And then remember what I said, use the common sign. So in this one, the common sign is negative. So that is why this becomes negative 7. Okay, so this is negative 7 and this is positive 7. This is going to be 7. This is going to be negative 7. Okay, so That is the absolute value method. Now, let me show you the same thing using algebra tiles. Okay. So we are going to use the same problem. I'm just going to remove this part. And if I say 2 plus 5, using algebra tiles, I know that I have two positive integers. So I have one positive and I have a second positive, and then I have five more positive integers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So how many total do I have? Okay, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So that is 7 positive integers. You can write positive 7 or just 7. If there's no sign in the front, it obviously automatically means it's a positive integer. All right. So that's using algebra tiles. Um, the same one, if I'm going to use with the negative integers, which is here. All right. So using algebra tiles, I have one negative and I have a second negative. All right. This one we are doing -2 plus -5. That's basically what we're doing. All right. And then I have five more negatives. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. How many negatives overall? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So that gives me -7 as the answer. So that is basically using the algebra tile. Okay. Now let me show you on the number line. Okay. So we'll show you the same thing on the number line. So let's say I have 2 plus 5. Okay. Now on the number line, have your number line drawn out. Okay, here we go. 0, left are negatives, plus 3. All right. So we start at 0, and then for everything plus, it's going to the right. So this means positive. The graph is going to move to the right. Again, this is plus, so this is going to move to the right. Okay, so let's start with 2. So I go from 0, I go 1, 2, and then I have plus 5. So I am going to move 5 more to the right. Starting at 2 now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And so this one here, 7, is going to be my answer for the first one. So this is how we are using the number line. All right. Let's use the number line for now when we have the same signs with negative integers. Okay. So now we've done this, before. We know that 0 is like a mirror. It's like a reflection. So if I have 1 to the right of 0, on the left, it's going to be -1. Same distance from 0 on the number line. Okay, so that's what absolute value is. So let's look at this one. If I have -2 plus -5, when I say minus, the line graph is moving to the left. Okay, plus again negative, so this is going to move more to the left. All right, so let's start again at 0. It's saying -2, so from 0 I begin and I go 1, 2 to the left, and 5 more because it is negative. So 5 more. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So here is my answer, and which gives me -7 as my sum of the two integers which have the same sign. And Whether it's negative, positive, just the sign is what makes the difference. So these are the three ways of our learning target. The algebra tiles, which is this one, all right, number line, which is this one, and then the absolute value one is what I had shown you earlier using absolute value symbols and how to solve that. Okay, so once again, if I'm using absolute value, you add the absolute value of the integers and then use the common sign. All right, now let's talk about integers with different signs. Okay, with different signs. So the opposite sign or different sign. So let me just take 8 plus -10. Then I have -13 plus 17. All right. So when I have integers with different signs, you subtract the lesser absolute value from the greater absolute value and then use the sign of the integer with the greater absolute value. Okay, so once again, you are subtracting the lesser absolute value from the greater absolute value, and you are using the sign of the greater absolute value. Okay, so um, let's look at this one. So absolute value of 8 is going to give me um, here's the absolute value of 8. I get 8, right? And absolute value of -10 is going to give me 10, right? Because the distance of -10 from 0 on the number line is 10, okay? So in subtracting, we are going to take both these absolute values, all right? And then we are going to subtract the lesser absolute value from the greater absolute value, so that we are going to do 10 minus 8 now. And then we are going to use the sign of the integer with the greater absolute value. So here we're going to do 10 minus 8, and I'm going to get 2. And then the integer with the greater absolute value, this has the negative sign. So therefore, my negative sign is going to come here, and that becomes my answer. All right, so this is when we are using absolute value. All right, so let's look at the next one. Absolute value of -13 is going to give me 13. All right, and absolute value of 17 is going to give me 17. And so then I do 17 minus 13 and I get 4. And I can see that the sign in front of the bigger integer is positive. So this is going to be 4, or you can write +4. All right. So that is the absolute value method. All right. So basically, you're just taking the two numbers, the absolute values of the two numbers, subtracting the smaller absolute value from the greater absolute value, and giving the sign of the integer with the greater absolute value. So that's how we are adding numbers or integers with the opposite signs or with different signs. Okay. So this is one method, which is the absolute value method. Let me show you with algebra tiles. All right. So in this case, let me do this. The 8 plus -10, I'm going to show you this one. So I'm going to remove this. Okay. I'm going to have 8 positives. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All right. And I'm going to have 10 negatives. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay. So with opposite signs, what I do is I just make zero pairs. A zero pair basically means I'm taking one positive integer and combining it with one negative integer and making a pair, and it will give me zero, because what is one minus one? It is going to be zero, right? So I'm going to make these zero pairs. Here's a zero pair, here's a zero pair, and we keep going until it's one positive with one negative, one positive with one negative. Okay? And then these have made it into zero pairs. And then what am I left with at the bottom? This part. I have one negative and I have another negative. So that is two negatives. And that is going to be my answer, which is going to be negative 2. So this is how I am using the algebra tiles for this method. Okay. Now, let's use the number line method. Let's use the number line method. And we are going to use the same problem. So I have a number line. Start with 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Negative 1, negative 2, negative 3, negative 4. All right. So remember what I had said earlier. When it's plus or it's positive integer, we move right on the number line. When it's negative, we move left on the number line. Okay, so we are going to use the number line method now. So it says 8. So I'm going to start at 0 and I'm going to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Because it's plus, I'm going to go to the right. Okay, here it is minus, so I'm going to go to the left. So now right now I'm at 8, and so from there now I'm going to go, it says minus 10, so I start moving from 8 to the left 10 spaces. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. So here is my answer, which would be negative 2. So no matter which way we do it, we still get obviously the same answer when we are adding integers with different signs. All right. So let's try a problem where we have maybe 3 numbers, and then that way, we can either group it or we can go in the correct order, what we choose to do. So. Okay, so let's say I give you a problem, um, negative 26 plus 74, okay, plus negative 14, plus negative 14, all right? So there are different ways of doing this. We are first going to write the expression like I have written this expression, and then I am going to use the commutative property. All right, I'm going to use the commutative property, and so in which I am changing the order of the numbers so that I can group the like terms or the like signs together. Okay, so in this case I am going to do negative 26, and we know that this and this have exactly the same sign, so that's why I am going to do commutative property, and I'm going to switch this negative 14 plus 74. So when I am switching the order, like for commutative property is nothing. Like if I say 5 plus 2 is equal to 2 plus 5. 5 times 2 is equal to 2 times 5. So this property applies only to multiplication and addition. So I have just now switched it around so I can combine my like terms over here. All right. And so if I look at this, I'm going to have negative 26 over here. and I have negative 14. So because they are the same sign, okay? So 6 plus 4 is 10, carry over 1. 2 plus 1 is 3 plus 1, 4. So this is going to be negative 40, all right? Negative 40 plus 74. Okay, now because we are adding opposite signs, the absolute value of negative 40 is 40 and the absolute value of 74 is 74. So I am going to do 74 minus the 40. Okay, so absolute value of negative 40 is 40. Absolute value of 74 is 74. So I am going to subtract the smaller integer from the greater integer, right? And I am going to get 34. And then I look at the sign in front of the bigger integer. It is positive because I have 74. That means this is a positive sign. So this is going to be written as either positive 34 or just 34. And so this is going to be my answer. All right. So this is one way to do it. I can also go from left to right when I am using the method of, going in the correct order. So we are adding the numbers in order. So that means negative 26 plus 74 plus negative 14. Okay, so what I'm going to do over here, I am going to add the negative 26 plus 74. So I know once again absolute value of negative 26 is 26. Absolute value of 74 is 74. So I am going to do 74 minus 26. All right, 74 minus 26, and I am going to get 48. Okay, because this becomes 14 and this becomes 6, and 14 minus 6 is 8. 6 minus 2 is 4, and I know that the sign in front of the bigger number is positive, so this is positive 48. All right, and then plus the negative 14. Okay, again, absolute value of 48 is 48, and the absolute value of negative 14 is 14. So then I'm going to subtract the smaller absolute value from the larger one, and I get 34. And since this sign, this integer sign is going to be positive, this is going to be a positive integer. All right. So either you can group the same signs and do it, or you can just go in the correct order from left to right when you are adding integers. Okay. So basically, just remember these rules. Once again, when you are adding integers with the same sign, add the absolute values of the integers and then use the common sign. When you are adding integers with different signs, you subtract the lesser absolute value from the greater absolute value and use the sign of the integer with the greater absolute value. And then please remember, additive inverse property is nothing but the sum of a number and its additive inverse or opposite is always going to be 0. Okay, so if I give you a negative 25 plus 25, so they're opposite signs. My When I'm adding both of them, negative 25 plus 25, I am definitely going to get 0 because they are additive inverses. All right. So this is all about adding integers, which is the first part of indicator 1. All right. Have a great day, y'all.